Hey there, it's Chris Acton with Acton Creative, and this is a hand-woven experience, episode 54. And in this episode, I'm going to answer the question, my project's off the loom, now what? I'm going to give you some tips and tricks for how to finish strong. So first of all, your project is finished, it's off the loom, yay you. This is a very big deal, so give yourself a moment, pat yourself on the back, revel in your success. That is a huge first step because this is no small achievement. I promise you, every weaver can attest to that very satisfying feeling you get when your project comes off the loom. Okay, so it's off the loom. The first thing I recommend is to deal with your spacers. At the very beginning and possibly at the very end too, you put in these spacers to even out your yarns. I like to use toilet paper, but I've heard weavers use just throwaway yarn or fabric or whatever they like. So address this first. Here's what I would recommend. Depending on your project, you can just put in a series of little knots and kind of trim it up, just like you see there. Now, if you have plans for say it's fringe for a runner, go ahead, take out your little bits here and do your twists or braids or whatever you're gonna do here. But the idea is to kind of finish this up. Take out these bits, get it so you have a nice clean edge. Okay, that's your first thing. Second thing is to tackle your ends. Okay, when you're weaving, you always have, every time you change colors, I should say, you always have little bits to deal with. Now, these may or may not be a problem. If you're going to use this just as fabric that you're going to cut for a sewing project, something like that, it may be better if you just leave these hang, which is totally fine. But if this is going to be a runner, like our earlier example, you want to have a nice clean edge. So take a needle and hide it back through your fabric. Easy enough. Now that applies for these ends and this kind of end. I had that broken thread from a couple episodes ago. So I have a yarn here that needs to be worked into the other warp yarns here. So this is the time when you just want to tackle any kind of loose ends that you have, depending on what your fabric is going to be used for. So kind of think through the purpose of it as you're evaluating this part of the process. Next up, numbers. Here's what I like to always recommend is that, at the beginning of the project, you did all of these fabulous plans, right? You carefully managed the numbers for the width, the length. You did all this math. Why not keep doing some math at the end to help you for the next project? So here's what I like to say. Take your measuring tape, lay out your project, and give yourself some numbers. What is the actual width when it comes off the loom? What is the actual length? And here's where I like to remind you just to give yourself a little grace. Whatever you planned for, that's all just the plan in the beginning. This is what actually happened, which is fabulous. Whether it lines up with your plans or not, this is all a learning experience. So document your numbers. Because if you're going to wash this, you're going to have another set of numbers as things shrink or shift or whatever. So this is a great time to just make a few notes on what your actual inches are versus what you planned in the beginning. I promise you, it'll make you a smarter weaver for the next time you come to a similar project. And lastly, I like to recommend that you sit down, actually evaluate your pattern, the colors. I like to lay it down on the floor like a big old carpet and take a whole bunch of pictures and actually look through the different sections of your project. Were there places where you had unexpected colors that you were like, I really like this combination right here, and I'm going to do something like this going forward in the future? How was the pattern? Is the pattern easier to read when you have light colors or when you have dark colors? Just really do some analysis of the fabric in general, because this is a great time to do it. You made your plans in the beginning, and this is what it actually looks like. So celebrate this. Take lots of pictures. That's always one of my recommendations, is to have lots of pictures, because if you're gonna wash this, it's gonna look different as well. So this is an important stage in the whole process. So those are my recommendations. When your project comes off the loom, here are just a few tips and tricks, a few steps that will really help you as you finish strong. After this point then, if you're going to do some kind of finishing, put it in the washer and dryer, do some kind of wet finishing, you are primed and ready for that step. If it's gonna go to a sewing machine next, you are ready. So I hope that helps, gives you some direction as to where to go after it immediately comes off the loom. And then you lead right into whatever is going to finalize your project, and you can close the door on this particular colorful chapter. All right, my friends, have a great week. Do lots of weaving, would ya? Happy weaving.